Hi there, it's Joseph, and we're going to do a quick overview of EPR for neurosurgeons. We're going to go quickly, so please pause if you need to. Email IMNT and ask to be added to the neurosurgery staff group on EPR. You will find that if you go and click the spanner icon, you have all of these lists which you can move over into your active lists by pressing this button and pressing OK. You will then find that you have all of the shared lists. It's important to share these lists and not just make your own. That way, if we use any customized lists, they can be updated by other team members. Okay, so now you've added all your lists via the spanner icon. The main one we use is the adult neurosurgery list. Let's go to a test patient. We're going to use the test patient you can find on the adult neurosurgery list, and that's the one you should practice with. They're named XXXXXXXXXXXXXX. So the first thing we need to set up is our Power Notes. Make sure we set up the correct note types on Power Notes, and then we need to set it up in Notes as well. This is a highly unintuitive process, but once you've done it, everyone will be able to identify you as a neurosurgeon in the notes. We won't have any mistakes where people think you're a nephrologist. In Power Notes, you need to press Add. You can see I've correctly set up my note types so that I only have neurosurgery note types. These are essentially titles. I've also got discharge summaries and death notifications. These are all of the note types you'll need as a neurosurgical SHO, registrar or consultant. You have to have clicked Add. So Add, View. From there you go to Customize. In Customize you click Document Type. Set your default note type. I always set it to neurosurgery inpatient medical. This is the note type title that when you open a Power Notes it will default to. You need to set your default list type to personal note type list. If you don't, you will get every single Power Note type. You've got all of these potential titles here of all these different types of service. You cannot add all of these at once. The way to find them is to type in neurosurgery and find the ones you want and move it over into this area. Then you do the same, neurosurgery, and you keep doing that until you've moved all of the ones you need in this area, including death notification summary and discharge summary. Then you go Apply, and you go OK. You'll probably find that you don't yet have these all here because it's not set to personal note type. The way to do that is to right click on here and change the default from Power Note Type List or All Note Type List to Personal Note Type List. Frustratingly, this process needs to be repeated in Notes as well, because people tend to move between Power Notes and Notes. They both show the same type of notes, but Power Notes is essentially for writing pre-configured notes, and Notes is for writing the quick note type without any pro forma. In here, you'll need to change this to Personal Note Type, and then you'll need to go to Documents, Options, and again, make sure it's set to Neurosurgery Inpatient Medical. Make sure you've got all the ones you want and press OK. Once you've done that, whenever you have a note or a Power Notes, it should always show the note type. It should default to Neurosurgery Inpatient Medical. It should only give the options of types that you have selected. We're going to add our pre-configured documents. The reason you're doing this is you're adding templates for faster working. We have a neurosurgical workflow. It's called the NSurg documents. It is a small number of documents. With all of these templates, you should be able to get most things done in neurosurgery. The way to add them is to open pre-configured, type in NSurg. You'll find these note types. Use Shift to select all of them and click Add to Favorites. Do not click the delete button, otherwise I'll have to add them again and it's very frustrating. Instead, click Add to Favorites. Once you've done that, you should never need to come back to pre-configured. You can just leave it on Favorites and you'll never need to do this again. The main one you'll use is the neurosurgery team document. We've got a Friday weekend plan, so on Fridays, you use this to document the plan for the weekend, on the Friday afternoon. Weekend ward rounds are obviously have to write quicker because we have less people, and therefore we don't use the same long pro forma, we use a shorter pro forma. Neurosurgical discharge, let's use a neurosurgical discharge, something which is an absolute beast. It's massive, but once you get used to using it, it's very quick and it stops you from making mistakes. We've got round outs, which are for the registrars to meet with the SHOs, normally about 3:30 every day, and go through every patient and document what the plan is for the on-call team and for the next day. And then we've got things like booking emergency forms, letters, lumbar puncture forms, consent, and operations. Let's look at the neurosurgery team document. What's so important about this? It carries forward. We use this document to make sure that when we clerk someone in and then do a ward rounds or whenever you review them, you carry that information forward without having to copy and paste. The problem with copying and pasting is that people accidentally risk pasting this patient's details into someone else's notes. The way to avoid that is to copy forward. Let's show an example of that. If you're doing a ward round, you'd write the round type, the most senior person present during the COVID pandemic. You'd use this to document what their COVID status is. They're admitting problems and problems of submission, their comorbids. You'd summarize the observations, check their labs, drugs, and their tests, talk about today and how they're doing today in their exam, and talk about the plan, including VT, prophylaxis, and discharge status. Then you'd sign it, for example, using an auto text like I do. All right, so let's say, for example, this. Go sign. Okay, so how do you copy that forward? Well, the next ward round or next person reviewing might wants to copy that forward without having to copy and paste it. The way to do that is to click on existing, to find the last note made, copy to new note, and double click it, and it'll copy it forward with any changes. That way we build up a concise document of all the patient's problems. We don't have to keep rewriting the same things or copying and pasting. We've learned how to copy forward. Let's make some auto texts. So again, do this on a practice patient, open the clinical notes. An auto text, for example, could be your signature, my name, and my bleep number. And then select it like this, right click on it, save as auto text. I always use XX as my abbreviation for an auto text because it's not something you write in natural language. You can describe it there, save, close that. Okay, whenever you type in XX test, it will enter that, and it's a good way of quickly writing things. You might want to make use of our auto text library. The way to do that is to go to NSurg pre-configured documents in your favorites, double click on the neurosurgery auto text library. And you can find some of these pretty useful documents, for example, CSF drains. Here's our plans for volume drainage. You might want to copy that, right click on it, save as auto text, put XX volume. And then from now on, whenever you enter that after saving XX volume, this protocol will appear. It saves you a lot of time and makes things unequivocal. Okay, now you've set up everything for Power Notes and Notes. So everything you need to make documents and to document problems has been sorted. Now we need to look into setting up EPR so it's a bit more intuitive for the rest of your tasks. For example, the patient's drug chart looks like this for a simple drug chart, and that's quite easy to read. But when you get to a big drug chart, it is really hard to tell what's going on. All you want is a list of the patient's medications. And I've set up my prescribing tab so it shows me an alphabetical order list of just the patient's medications, and I can quickly stop them just by clicking this button if I want to. And you can see I've created a custom display type here called Joseph's Drugs. To do that, you want to set up your prescribing, so that is just your drug charts, and your requests and prescribing as your actual requesting page. So go to prescribing, go to this customizing button here, and from here you can get rid of all of the other ticks in all the random boxes and just leave inpatient orders and active ordered. Save as, and you name it something like Joseph's Drugs or your own drugs, and apply, save as, and then close, and then it will simply show you this list. And it's a much easier way of looking at a drug chart. Seriously, this makes a big difference to time saving. Let's go to requests and prescribing. You want to set up a favorite list of things you prescribe or request all the time. For example, I've got my admission drugs, my imaging I use all the time, what I do for a seizure, CSF. If I want to give intrathecals, I can use that. If I want to take samples, I can use this list. Every patient who gets admitted gets some of these drugs. And it means I don't miss out things like IPCs and TEDs, for example, like pituitary. If I want to prescribe the post-TSA protocol, I can do it very quickly by clicking down this list. The way to do that is to prescribe a bunch of things, put in the doses of everything you want, make sure the X is gone, so you've filled in everything you want, and then right click on it and go add to favorites. And then you can make a different favorite folder for it and go okay. It takes some time to do, but it will make your life much easier in the long run. We're going to set up interactive view for observations. The single best way to look at observations quickly on a ward round. Here again, it's a test patient, so you can't see it, but most people will have an interactive view, which will show a huge box going on for miles with loads of empty spaces. My interactive view, when you actually go onto a patient, which I can't show you here, will show a small box with no empty boxes, and it will just show you exactly what I want to see. I can also quickly go from observations to children's observations to neuro ICU quick view to fluid balance. And again, it gives you a quick fluid balance. It's easy to use. The way to set this up, go to options, go to customize view, go to preferences, and then you're going to make sure custom view collapse all. And hide empty columns rows, definitely have that ticked. If you want, you can change the default frequency interval as well. And go OK. To change the type of observations and fluid balance, make sure you've got observations, children's observations, neuro ICU, and fluid balance on here. View, layout, navigator bands, and make sure you only move over here to here, observations, children's, neuro ICU, and intake output bands. Get rid of all of the others, they are useless. You will now have the right power note set up, a proper workflow that is easy to use. You'll know how to copy or forward the last power note so that you can update it without having to copy and paste. You'll have a prescribing view, which just shows you an alphabetical list of only the medications a patient is actually on without duplicates. You'll have a favorites list in requests and prescribing for quick orders, an interactive view, which enables you to look at the patient's OBS, children's OBS, and fluid balance very easily and quickly. That's your basic setup of EPR. I hope you found that useful. Any problems, come and find me.